أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My childhood was spent in the lap or the shade of my father and my grandmother. And there are three things that as a child they taught me to love and to carry with me everywhere. Keep in mind that my father died when I was 10. And the three things were the Tasbih of Sayyida Fatema, a handkerchief that my father gave me since I could toddle. And he would say, every time you cry and you think of Hussein, use this handkerchief, which is the handkerchief of Sayyida. And the other thing was Hadith-e-Kisa. This was something that was recited at home all the time, especially the bit that said, Hum Fatimatu wa abuha wa ba'aluha wa banuha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And these three things sort of stuck to us, and maybe it's because of the presence of this personality in the way I was brought up, that I was always brought up to believe that both genders, whether man or woman, were complementary in all functions. I don't think I ever felt any different from the boys in the family. And therefore now, even at the age of 55, I find it quite bemusing. In fact, I find it a bit amusing, actually, when I see my gender praise a speaker because on that particular day, he felt benevolent enough to talk about the rights of women. You know, they say, it was beautiful. He talked about the rights of women. It sort of makes you feel as though women somehow are some sort of second-class citizen, and then we're waiting for these crumbs to fall from the speaker's mouth. And then we're supposed to say thank you when he says, you don't have to cook for your husband. And we're supposed to say, oh, thank you so much. You don't have to clean, and we're supposed to say, thank you so much. Now, this sort of impression I get. And it's no surprise that even when I'm speaking today, for example, and I've had a few phone calls about this because it's been on your website, that me as a mere woman is now going to address some men, okay? So these are sort of conflicting messages. Now, where do I get the conflicting messages from? They confuse my gender. Because on one side, you have the Islamic model or Quranic role model, as I might say. And you've got these women who are strong, who are dignified, who are wise, who are educated, who are opinionated. And these women, especially when I look at Fatima Zahra, as my father taught me as well, were those who took part in every aspect of Muslim life or life as such. Economic, everywhere, absolutely everywhere, political as well, as we will see in a little while. So you can see that you've got this spectrum. On one side, you have the religious, Quranic view. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I have the, I don't know what to call it, the cultural Muslim patriarch man thing, you know. And here, I'm supposed to be subservient. I'm supposed to be uneducated. I'm supposed to, I don't know what I'm supposed to be at best. And when you reach Ali Shariati's book, Fatima is Fatima, he puts it quite well, actually. Because you suddenly ask yourself, who am I? I mean, if I'm a Muslim, this is what it says I'm supposed to be. This is my role model. But then I look at the other side, and if I were to just open my mouth and say something against what they said, OMG, I've got issues, okay? So today, I just want to just put it forward to you that we've got to look and see what we really are. And I'd like to define a Muslim woman. I'd like to look at the life of Sayyida Fatima Zahra. I could use stronger language, but I think this is good enough for me, okay? So I'd like to talk about her and maybe change our perceptions about who a Muslim woman is. So just a little bit about definition as I see it. So contrary to any popular misconception that you might have, we find that Islam, whether you look at the Quran everywhere, it's long recognized the equality of men and women. There is no difference. If you look at Surah Al-Hujurat, Ya ayyuhan nas, O humankind, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha, indeed we have created you from one man and one woman, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. We've made you different tribes and communities so that you may recognize each other. Inna akramakum indallahi atkakum. The most honored with Allah, he doesn't say a man or a woman, he just say the most honored is the one who is the most God conscious. And I can use loads of ayat, but this to me is sort of the basic thing that stands there. So it's very clear. But it is to its credit that Islam does not commit hypocrisy. It doesn't say that they are the same or they're identical. Mandates are different, goal is the same. And the Prophet ﷺ, he initiated the freedom of woman. To be very honest, it wasn't like that was the be it and all it. There was an initiation that this is equal. But we tend to, I don't know, we stopped. Somehow this 18-inch square, or today it's a little bit rectangular, became a means in the Muslim society for men to control and suppress. In the Western perception, obviously, again, I came to subservient, uneducated, or to the best, a terrorist, to be very honest. Okay. Somehow we've got to change this. So let's have a look at this woman. Amazing woman. You've got a booklet in front of you. And I'd like to go over her life a little bit so we can understand what she was like. If the Quran says about the Prophet, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, indeed in the Prophet of God there is the most excellent example, then for women, surely I've got to look at her life. And somehow we've got to try very hard to separate culture from religion. All too well to call ourselves Muslims. We could start learning to behave like them. And the sad thing is we pick and choose. We call ourselves the followers of Fatima. And we pride ourselves at being the followers of Fatima. But that cannot be possible. Because Fatima, as Ali Shariati says, is Fatima. And I believe it is because she had the support of the men in her life. They allowed her to reach her full potential. They didn't suppress it. They allowed her to be herself, her as she was ordained to be, not what they wanted her to be. So let's have a little look at her life, okay? So we'll start off with her birth. Maybe you could turn to page 4. So we have in the year 615 of the Christian era. I'm not going to go into the dispute of dates that occur here and there. I'm not a historian, but let's stick to these that are so commonly accepted. So here we have Fatima being born, and she's born to these awesome parents. Her mother is Khadija, her father is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And amazing, because Khadija says, I see a refreshing fragrance around myself. Nobody assists her. You have 4 women from heaven who come to assist her for her delivery. Most of us have heard about this. And she enters the world. Such an amazing woman. So she starts off at being a daughter. Okay. Her name, she's named Fatima. Fatima means to cut or to wean. And we're told from Imam Sadiq that she will wean those who, and I will use the word follower with a lot of strength here, from any agitation of the fire of Jahannam. She will wean them out of there. Where she will take us, I fear to say Jannah, because that's quite difficult. But she will wean us out of there. We find that as a baby, as a child, there is an embargo on the Muslims. When the Banu Hashim are sent to Shibi Abi Talib, a valley where there's absolutely nothing. So I'd like you to imagine this child. First of all, she's brought up in a society where they bury daughters. I want to take you through a scenario so you know exactly where she's born, and then I'll take you through this one. So imagine that a daughter is born. Imagine the joy of the mother. And imagine the father saying, I'm sorry, we have to bury her. And he's burying her out of love. because he realizes that just as he abuses women, his daughter is going to be used and abused. He doesn't want to see that. He's a father. He's got the love of his daughter, but he'd rather see her buried than see her life and see her being abused. Now you imagine this scenario, the mom saying, please, let's keep her for a little while. And he says, okay. 6 months later, no, we've got to bury her. And mom says, no, please, a little bit more. Now imagine she's toddling, she's walking, she's saying mama and she's saying papa. And mom says, no, not yet, little bit more. But now he says, I'm sorry. This cannot go on. Society will not accept me if I do not bury her. And I don't want to see her grow up and be abused, because soon she's going to be beautiful and grow up and these men are just it's not going to work. So you imagine mom gets her ready. She says, where are we going? And are we going to the fair? And dad holds her hand and he takes her to the village square. And there's a hole in the ground. And he lowers himself in the ground with his child. And she says, are you going to play hide and seek with me? And he looks at her and he climbs out of the hole. And she says, don't leave me here. I'm not relating something out of fiction. This was related to the Prophet by one of the people who came to him who was going mad, because that's what he did. And then he covers her with earth and she cries out, Abi, my father, my father. This was the society she was born in. That is why the Quran says, وَإِذَا مَوْعُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. The day of Qiyamah will be the day when the newborn baby will ask, for what sin was I killed? What? Now we may not be burying our daughters, not in the earth, but we're burying them in confusion, just like this. So amongst this child is born. And her father absolutely adores her. So when she's 1 to 3 years old, she's toddling in this place which has no food. She watches her mother suffer. There's poverty, there's hunger, there's loneliness. She's a witness to all this. When she comes out of Shibi Abi Talib, her mother is extremely ill, really ill, because she's eaten the vegetation that's grown in this desert. And her mother's sole purpose was to protect her father. She sees this. This is how she grows up. And when she's 5, her father dies. And her mother dies. Her mother, when she's dying, she's really upset. And we're told that Asma was with her. And she tells her, Khadija, why are you crying so much? And she says, well, every daughter needs a mom on her wedding day. I don't know who is going to be with Fatima. And Asma says, I promise, I will be there with her. When they bury her mother, they don't have enough. Prophet doesn't have enough funds to have a coffin, to have a shroud that will cover his wife. That's how hard it is. And she asks her dad, and she said, where's mom? And he says, your mom is between Asya and Maryam's house. The 5-year-old says that Allah is as-salam, pieces from him and pieces to him. You find that now her dad is alone, and she watches as they abuse her dad. They throw thorns in his path. When he's doing sajda, they will put the intestines of animals over him. But the little girl speaks softly. She holds her dad's hands. She goes with her dad. She, with her little hands, stands there and wipes the face of her father. She cleans him, she comforts him. And he says, Anti Ummu Abiha, you are the mother of her father. And he says, Fatima is part of me. Whatever pleases her pleases me. Whatever angers her angers me. We're not talking about an ordinary person. We're talking about the messenger of God. We're speaking about someone who you can't match. This is what he says to his daughter. When she enters the room, he stands for her. It is unknown in any Arab culture. It was totally unknown for anybody to do that sort of thing. This is the respect that Fatima has. It was his objective. And if you think about it, the objective is to raise the status of women. And I will come back again where, I don't know, we sort of choose different things in Islam. That which we like, we take. That which we don't like, we don't take. Something goes wrong. So she's 5. When she's about 7, this is when the hijrah occurs. Now again, imagine, her father is her soul, everything. He is her world. And now he has to go because they're going to kill him otherwise. He goes without her. He leaves her in the care of Imam Ali alayhi salam. As Imam Ali is sleeping in his bed, and he's gone. You can imagine the child, and she's a child, 7, okay, in any language. She must have been petrified. And she travels that terrain. And any of you who have gone for Hajj or Umrah, and you've traveled from Mecca to Medina, and you probably go by coach. That wasn't a coach over there. There wasn't air-conditioned coaches. There was danger on the roads. That's a difficult journey they had. But she reaches there. In fact, when the Prophet is waiting for it, Masjid al-Quba, or Qiba as you might want to call it, and he's waiting there, when they tell him, no, let's go, he says, no, I will not go. He's waiting for Fatima. He's waiting for Ali. They travel together to Medina, and she's looked after by the mother of Abu Ayyub Ansari. Very often, these are little practical things, and something my father taught me when I was very young. When I used to go to school, he used to say, I put you in the protection of God with the wasila of the mother of Abu Ayyub Ansari. I couldn't understand why. But today when I read this, or when I read the story of Fatima, I understand why he said that. He was trying to teach me something. He was trying to tell me, do you know who she was? Find out about her. Lots of proposals of marriage come. Now they're living in Medina. Okay, so lots of proposals of marriage come. And each time a proposal comes, she refuses. But now she knows Ali. She knows who he is. And when this proposal comes, she accepts it with a silent smile. So on the 1st of Dhul Hijjah, Sayyida is married to Imam Ali. Simple ceremony. Mahar is 400 measures of silver. The Prophet escorts her to her house. Now, when he escorts her to her house with all these people with him, he tells them all to go away. But one person stays. Asma stays. And he says, didn't I ask you to leave? And she said, yeah, but I promised Khadija that I would take her place. And the Prophet raises his hands and he says, may Allah fulfill your needs in the dunya and the akhirah. Lots of lessons from here as to facilitating marriage, helping someone, so on and so forth. The Prophet takes her hand, places it in the hand of Imam Ali, and he entrusts his daughter to Imam Ali. He draws a line, we're told, and he says everything beyond that line was her responsibility. That was her. She was the owner, or she was the, I hate to say the word ruler, but the one who looked after that whole aspect of the home. And everything beyond that, he looked after and he would take care of. Rabbat manzil is a good word to use, somebody who looks after the house. I don't want to take too much of a snipe at men, really. But you know what? You got to let her be able to run that home without the 2 pennies worth that you put in and cause so many problems. The majority of problems we have today are these tiny little things where you want control of everything. You've got to try and relinquish that control. Anyway, that's what he was trying to teach here. So they lived in a house by the mosque of Quba, but he could not bear the separation from his daughter. So this is the Prophet. He brings his daughter to live in a house next to his. Right? Its doors open to the mosque, wall to wall, 2 windows facing each other, one from the house of Fatima and the other from the house of Muhammad. Every day, without exception, when he's on a journey, he seeks her out. And when he comes back, he greets her. And we have issues within the community when a daughter who is married wants to speak to her parents. Rasulullah brought his daughter near him. There must be something that is not quite right. I have an issue just a week ago where a couple are nearing divorce just because she insists on being able to visit her mom at least once a week. It boils down to that. And it doesn't even cross the head of how we can even think along those lines. Okay. Right, so we come to Fatima in the community. So you see the battles of Badr, you see the battles of Ahad, these are the earliest battles of Islam. We see her nursing the injured in the battle. In fact, when the war of Ahad comes to an end, you find the Prophet has an injured forehead, he's got a broken tooth. She rushes to Ahad. She cleans his face with water. We're told she burns a mat and she uses the ash to stop the bleeding on the wound. She actually left her house. Oh my God. She didn't actually stay inside. And we can't handle that. Let's go a bit further. Now we find that she gets married. So she's married. Oh, well, she's already married. Just a little bit talk about the marriage. Let's see what Imam Ali says. I've got it in the book, so you can always read it when you've got some time. He says, I never angered Fatima, nor did I ever ask her to do something she didn't like up to the day she died. Neither did she anger me or disobey me. In fact, whenever I looked at her, all depression and sadness lifted from my heart. I wanted to find somewhere where he said no to her, right? I'm sure women on this side never say no, but I wanted to find a place. And I found one incident, one sole incident, where Imam Ali said no to her. I'll tell you about it. So after his rights had been taken away from him, Salman sees her going to Masjid al-Nabi. She goes to the grave of the Prophet and she has the turban of the Prophet in her hand. And we're told that she puts the turban down on the grave. He's watching her and he says, what are you doing, Fatima? What is happening? And she says, I am going to pray here with the wasila of my father against those who usurp the rights of my husband. He says, Fatima, wait. He runs to Imam Ali and he says, this is what she's doing. And he says, Salman, go and tell her I say no. This is the only time I see him saying no to her. When he describes his relationship with her, he says, we lived like two pigeons in a cocoon. No Facebook, no phone, no television, no newspaper. They actually talked. I sort of Googled pigeons. I don't know whether you've Googled pigeons ever, but try and Google pigeons and see what they do. They actually chat to each other a lot. And they're together all the time. Bit difficult. Okay. I think you know where I'm getting to. So here she is, Fatima in her house. She grinds the wheat. She brings the water from outside. She's constantly working. She's always busy. And we hear this all the time. And I think this is used many times to say that that's what you're supposed to do. Just in the house, grind your wheat, make your chapatis, it's an awesome job. It's absolutely awesome. And we're told that her hands used to get chafed and they were hurt. And there are narrations that say that it's difficult. And Imam Ali tells her, if you want, you can go and ask your dad for some help, if you really do want. But we're told every time she goes, she feels bashful. She comes back. He comes to see her and he says, Fatima, I have a gift for you. A gift that will overcome all your difficulties and hardships. And he gifts her the tasbih when he tells her to recite Allahu Akbar 34 times, Alhamdulillah 33 times, Subhanallah 33 times, and once La ilaha illallah. And she makes a tasbih by knotting blue wool. It is very much later when she takes some earth from the grave of Hamza, who was martyred in the Battle of Ahad, and she uses that to make clay beads, and that's what we follow and do. This tasbih is something absolutely amazing. I don't think there is anything that matches this tasbih. Sadly, because it's become a ritual after Salah, we don't quite take it as seriously as it should. When the narrations say that the tasbih is equivalent to having completed one Hajj and Umrah. I think I've put the narration in your book, and maybe you can turn towards it and have a look. on the last page, in page 43, her father tells her, Fatima, you will not sleep until you've read the whole Quran. You will not sleep until you have asked the prophets to be your mediators. You will not sleep until you've satisfied all believers, and you will not sleep until you've performed the Hajj and Umrah. And she quizzically looks at him and he smiles and he says, recite Surah Al-Ikhlas 3 times and it is as though you have completed the Quran. Send salawat on me and it is as though you have the prophets as your mediators. Pray to Allah to forgive all believers and they will be satisfied with you. And if you recite the tasbih of Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah, and La ilaha illallah, it is as though you have performed the Hajj and Umrah. Not our topic today, but if you study it and look at those 4 recitations, which are known as Tasbihat Arba, they form the basis of the Kaaba, or the Rukns, the 4 bases of the Arsh, or the throne of Allah. Absolutely awesome. Often you get people who will say, we are in trouble and can you show us an amal? And if you tell them about the tasbih, they tell you, Bas, Kali tasbih. So if you tell them Amal Dawood, which takes about 3.5 hours, they think, yes, it's going to work. But this has an amazing effect. Okay. Then you find the birth of Imam Hussein, 3rd of Shaban, 4th after Hijrah. You know that. And that's where this handkerchief comes in. This handkerchief that we call the handkerchief of Zahra. I'd like to tell you a little bit about it. I'm going to be a bit practical here. Something that maybe many of us have and many of us have heard. I remember from my life, I remember a friend of mine who is a zakira. And I used to carry these handkerchiefs around and she used to ask me and I used to tell her how my grandmother used to insist that we have a handkerchief with us. And she told me something that I'd like to share with you. She said that her teacher was reciting majalis for Ashra Muharram 1 year. And she said on the 7th of Muharram she died. And she said when she died, it was an unexpected death. She said, I was told to take her place and recite the majlis. So she said, I was reciting the majlis, therefore I was unable to be with her for her ghusl and her shrouding. So she said, when I finished the majlis, I ran to the place where they were giving her ghusl. And I said, my teacher always insisted that she didn't want to be buried without her handkerchief, on which she cried the tears of Hussein. And she told them, where's her handkerchief? And they said, well, we don't know where it is. We couldn't find it. So she said, the handkerchief that I had on the mimbar with me, I took it. She said, I moved the chadar of her coffin and I placed it in my teacher's hand. And she told me, Wallah, I saw that her right hand folded over the handkerchief and tears flowed from her eyes. She said, my teacher had died. This, she said, was the handkerchief of Fatima Zahra. And that made my hair stand on end. It brought back all the memories that my grandmother used to tell me as a child. She would say, hold on to the handkerchief. When you feel sad, hold on to it. When something hurts you, the handkerchief on which you've cried your tears, put that near your hurt and see the hurt just disappear. That is the son of Fatima. That is Hussein. This is the Hussein that was born to her. Even today, those who are Sayyids, they pride themselves on being the sons of Fatima. Amazing woman, amazing woman. Then we have, obviously, we had Imam Hassan first, and then we have Imam Hussein, sorry. And then we have Sayyida Zainab and Kulthum. Now in between here, we have the Battle of Khaybar. And in the Battle of Khaybar, there is a piece of land which is gifted to her, which is known as Fadak, and I'll come to it at the end, because you have this beautiful khutbah Fadaqiyya. I'd just like to glance at it and have a look at it. We find Fatima in the Quran in lots of places. Maybe one that I would like to mention is where you have Ayatul Tathir, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا اللَّهُمَّ صَلِّ عَلَى Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad wa ajil farajhum. And you find this ayah revealed on the night of Mubahila. So this includes Fatima. You find the ayah of Mubahila, obviously, when they're told to bring their men and their selves and their women and their children. And you find Sayyida is taken with them. We then find the event of Ghadir. Now here, she is about 17 years of age. It's a very short life, but an amazing life. And you find at Ghadir, obviously, the appointment of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and all of us know this. Now comes the difficult part of her life. 28th of Safar, 11 after Hijrah. The love of her life, her father dies. It's devastating for her. This is the person she lived for. This is the man that she absolutely adored. And things just go absolutely haywire. We see not only is there the grief at losing her father, we find that there is an ill-conceived meeting at Saqifa. We find that she sees that the position of her husband or the rights of her husband are taken away. Fadak is taken away. We find they come looking for her husband. Now this is a place where she's revered, she's honored. So we're told they come looking for her husband, many, many different narrations. She doesn't allow them into their house. The house is broken down. We're told the door is pushed on her, and we see the end of her pregnancy with the premature birth of Mohsin. In response to all this, the only way she can speak out is to speak out against their taking away her rightful inheritance. And just for a little bit, I'm not going to go through the whole of Khutbah Fadakiya, but I'd like to go through the exchange that she has, and I've picked out bits, with the Khalifa, who is Abu Bakr at that time. And I picked bits that maybe may help. She tells him after quite a lot of stuff, and we'll look at it if we've got some time. She says, "Is it befitting that I am deprived of my inheritance?" And she quotes some ayat of the Quran. She quotes Surah An-Naml, where Sulaiman inherits Dawood. She quotes Surah An-Nisa, where the male has the equal to the share of two females. She quotes Surah Al-Baqarah. Somebody leaves behind anything, they have to make a bequest for the parents and those who are the nearest in relation in goodness, and that's something that is dutiful for the righteous. He says, "I have never disobeyed the Prophet, but I have heard with my ears the Prophet saying that we prophets do not leave any gold or silver, any land or property as inheritance. Our inheritance is knowledge, wisdom, the book, and prophethood." She turns around and she says, "My father never turned away from the Quran, nor did he ever oppose the book. But the Quran says of Zakaria in Surah Maryam, Yarithuni wa yarithu min ali Yaqub." Zakaria asks for a child who will inherit him and inherit the children of Yaqub. She then quotes Surah An-Naml, where Allah says, وَوَارِثَ سُلَيْمَانُ Dawood, and Sulaiman inherited Dawood. So she quotes this to him. And he says, "Certainly the words of Allah and His Prophet are true. And while you, O daughter of the Prophet, speak the truth, you are the mine of wisdom." This is him saying it. "The home of guidance and blessing, the pillar of religion, the evidence of truth. I don't dispute your opinion and words. However, this group of Muslims who are seated in front of you are the ones who will judge you." She turns around to them and she tells them, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Do you not ponder over the Quran? Or do you have locks on your hearts? She talks to them, but this is what she tells them. Now, part of her sermon, and this is where I want to get to, is she focuses on the Quran. She says, "Amongst you is the book of Allah," the speaking one, "a book of total truth and a brilliant light. It's evident. Its secrets are revealed. It's apparent. Everything is clear. Those who stick to it become reasons for others to envy. It leads its followers to their full potential, which is Allah's pleasure." She says its listeners are led to salvation, and through it are gained the illuminated evidences of divinity. It contains the virtues of mustahabat, the freedom with performing the mubah. It informs you about the makruh, and in it are legal laws. What she was trying to say was that when we have a book in front of us, nothing else that anybody says, whether it is cultural or whether they quote a hadith, stands any ground if you know this book. And she's telling us to move towards this book. When I look at her life and look at the whole of her life, you tend to see that there is Quranic tinted spectacles that she wears. She doesn't wear any other glasses. We may have Koja tinted spectacles, or I don't know. I really don't know what to say. Whatever tinted spectacles we have, We need to change them. If we're followers of Fatima Zahra, we need to change to wear these different spectacles, which I believe are the Quranic tinted spectacles. Sadly, and very sadly, we have encouraged even our children just to memorize. We don't want them to understand. And when we want them to understand, we scare them. We say, you know what? This is only to be understood by the ulama. Nowhere in the Quran did I see that it says, in fact it says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It is guidance for those who are God conscious. It didn't say it is هُدًى لِلْعُلَمَاء only. And I don't in any way put down the ulama. They are the ones whom we learn from. They are the scholars that we go to. And they're the ones who encourage this. But somewhere along the line, the message got skewed. Somewhere along the line, we as women didn't want to be women. We just wanted to be the ribs of Adam, as other people tell us we are. That's not how we're supposed to be. I'd like to end with what Imam Ali alayhi salam says when he buries her. I love this because if that's what we can be, we've made it. When he buries her, and it's on page 35, he says, Ya Rasulullah, accept my salams and those of your daughter, who is being buried not far from you, and who is to meet you so quickly. O the chosen messenger, the death of your daughter has left me without patience and solace. I have lost my self-restraint and my power of endurance. Do you know who's talking? It's not just any man. This is the most perfect student of Rasulullah. This is the most awesome man who walked on the earth besides Rasulullah. This is Ali. He says, after having endured the separation from you, I shall have to bear this catastrophe patiently. O Prophet of God, I laid you down in the grave with my own hands. Your soul departed from your body while you were resting upon my chest, and your head was lying between my neck and my heart. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Your trust, which was entrusted to me, is taken back from me. I'm sad. Sorrow lives with me. Happiness has taken leave. This grief is so overbearing that it engulfs and swallows other sorrows, and it has left me with sleepless nights and joyless days. From now onwards, my life will be continued heartache till God gathers me with you, both in the realm of His favor and peace. O Messenger of God, your daughter will tell you how your followers have behaved with her, how they have ill-treated her. Ask her the details of what has happened to her during the short period after your departure. This period of separation from you was so short that people still remember you and were still talking about you. Accept my salams and goodbye. He says it is the wish of a sincere heart which loved and always loved you both, a heart which will cherish and will carry you your memories to the grave. Goodbye, O daughter of the chosen messenger of God. He said, if I leave your grave to go to my place, it is not because I am tired of your company. I love this bit. He says, I wish I had it to the end of my life. He wanted to stay there. But he says, if I make a permanent home on your grave, it will not be because I doubt that the reward that God has reserved for those who bear sorrows patiently. Goodbye. May God's peace and blessings be with you. You'll find this in Sermon 207 of Nahj al-Balagha. This is Fatima. And I will requote what Ali Shariati said when he said that Maryam is known as the mother of Isa. He says, I look at Fatima. She is the daughter of Muhammad. I could call her that. I could call her the wife of Ali. I could call her the mother of Hassan and Hussein. I could call her the mother of Zainab. But when I look at Fatima, there's nothing I can say except Fatima is Fatima. I urge you to read the sermon of Fadak. It's absolutely amazing. Even today, the ulama struggle to understand the language, to understand the depth with which she spoke. And maybe little by little, there's something that may change. And maybe my gender will stand up to be who they were made to be. As Imam Ali says in his favorite dua, Anta kama uhib faj'alni kama tuhib. You are exactly, he's talking to God, and he says, you are exactly as I would have loved you to be. Make me as you would love me to be, not what other people want us to be. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much for listening.
We have a couple of minutes for questions, if there are any. Start with the sister's side, if there are any questions.
Do we have any specific resources on things, particulars about the way she lived her life? Like, we're always told to use her as a role model. So then when I became a mom and everyone said, use her as a role model, which, I would agree with. But I feel like there's not much information. Like, how did she feed her children? What kind of a mother was she? Did she, take them out with her? Did she do the nights, or did Imam Ali do the nights? When did she wean? These kind of things. Do we know? I
think we've got lots of little bits of information in scattered places. Remember, for a woman to be known and to be written about was not a very easy process. But little things you find, like Laylatul Qadr, you find she used to make her children sleep in the afternoon, give them a light meal so they would be able to keep awake. You find, obviously, the beautiful incidents about whenever they came back from the mosque, she would ask them what her father had said. The tasbih that broke, and they said, who do you love the most? It's these tiny things that you pick up. The bit where she used to pray Salatul Layl and Imam Hassan used to listen to her. And he used to say, I hear everybody's names, but not ours. And she used to say the neighbors before the house. And when you put all these little things together, it's quite a lot. The other day I was reading that her favorite chapters of the Quran were 55, 56, 57, which is Rahman, Waqia, and Hadid. And there was a wonderful explanation I was listening to where Rahman meant, obviously it means merciful. It was the Rahmah that she was alluding towards. Waqia was Qiyamah, so accountability, and Hadid was strength. And maybe those three things encompass it. So things like that, you will find lots of little tidbits that I think maybe we should take upon ourselves to put together into a document.
Thank you, sister. When we look at major incidents in the life of the prophets and the imams and Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, many of the incidents that appear in our books also appear in Ahl Sunnah books. For example, incident of Ghadir Qum, the incident of Kisa, etc., etc. Have you ever come across this incident of the breaking down of the door, or the Fadak in Sunni books, and how they have actually described it? Because this seems to be major incidents, if you come across, and how they have described it. Although the details may vary, so if you can throw some light on it, please.
I think when I read books, and I must admit, books by Shia authors that have quoted Sunni sources, I read different accounts of lots of different things. But I haven't, shortfall on my part, I haven't picked up a book that is authored by maybe by a Sunni author, or a book from the Ahlus Sunnah to read about it, but something that maybe I will look into. I've seen various different accounts. You've seen denials also by people. So I'm really not learned enough on the historian side of it to look at those books. So maybe I will look at it. It's a thought-provoking question.
Any other questions?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. Just wanted to add on, sorry, I've got a bit of cold, the story of Fatima alayhi salam. To add on to her character, the way she lived. Florence Nightingale, everybody knows her as a woman who went to war and helping the injured people. When she traveled to Egypt, she learned a lot about Islam and the Muslim women at the time there were war taking place. She learned from the life of the Fatima and all the Muslim those days that how they went to the war, and one of them was Prophet's daughter, getting together women, educating them how to look after the injured people. And That was Fatima alayhi salam, who was expert in medicine, who was very brave going into the battlefield. And she took these ladies and educated them to do it. Then Florence Nightingale, they don't tell us that. In fact, she became a Muslim. When she entered England, in a church, she explained about the daughter of Prophet Muhammad and all the ladies, and they chased her away and out of the church by the broom and literally kicked her out. But when she went back home, the voice was telling her, turn your face back to Kaaba. Turn your face back to Kaaba. So there is a lots of stories about Florence Nightingale. This is one, but then what I'm trying to say, we haven't learned about her life. We don't live the way she lives. When is going to be taking a place that the women become really, really living like her? And there are women who do, but nobody recognizing them. The other thing is, you talked about Saqifa and Qadir al-Khum. Kalimat al-Mawlana has got 28 meaning. Sheikh Mufid has described in his book. None of them become near Khalifa. So I would like you to really look into that. And also, I made lots of research on Fadak. Unfortunately, the authenticity of this, it doesn't come about. So for the sake of unity and the truth, if we focus on Ahl al-Bayt's life and bring it as an action to our own life, that would flourish into the people's mind and the Ummah about the knowledge of Ahl al-Bayt and who they were. Because you're a learned woman and you love to learn, please do look into it. And if you want any references of my research, I'm very much happy to give it to you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Are we good?
I think we'll end there. Salawat.